Yes, I thank you for this moment to join me, and I ask, walk with me as we explore the problem of education. All academic institutions, they are busy teaching, they are busy solving problems. The UN is solving global problems. Can our education system really solve our global physical problem? This time you are going to be with me. I love that we explore together an existential viewpoint of the problem of education. I, speaking to you, my name is Chiinji Martin. I am the lead research scholar at Microcode Research here in Uganda. I am also a PhD student at Nkumba University. Working with the university, I realized that in our department, the Faculty of Education, I look into the philosophy of education. Exploring the philosophy of education, I came across Kraft in his write-up. He gave us the beginning of education, and he said that education comes from a Latin word called educatum, meaning two things. One, educare, to train, or educere, to mentor. Training is when you are leading a classroom setting and the teacher is teaching. But mentor is when the teacher is doing an activity that together with the students, and the students are learning from the way the mentor does such activity. For us to establish the problem of education, we cannot base on just what scholars have written, but I have taken a fresh dive back in the beginning of existence. If you go back to the beginning of existence, we can only start from what we know. And what do we know? That the moment a child is born, the child begins to wonder and quest for knowing the things which are around the child's visible space. A child may start listening to sounds, cognitively trying to establish the voice of the mother. But this child grows through the years until university level, when he's still studying. The question is, by the time you reach the university, are you sure you know enough to understand the nature of your existence? Some of us, we have reached at PhD levels. We are still green about what is the nature of our existence, into which all living souls, the man, the fauna, the flowers, and all these species into which we exist and die. It is true we exist, but we are not sure what is the purpose of our existence. I tried to explore that within Uganda and globally, our means to establish the truth is only based on physical senses, or what we call as scientific inquiry. Within our academic institutions, when we are studying whatever we are trying to study and establish the truth, we only base on scientific inquiry. That's why our education system, the curriculum, the syllabus, and other academic subjects, we are only looking at the physical truth, or what some other scholars call as natural sciences. But is the physical truth, or is physical the only possibility of existence? Therefore, we need to establish that whatever is not verifiable by physical senses or is not scientific, many scholars consider it as pseudosciences or alchemy. The religious people call it spirituality. The academic people call it psychology. We give these names because we don't actually understand that which is not physical. I tried to explore. I myself, I realize I have free will. I realize there are things that I do which are not physical, meaning science cannot understand them. Therefore, if science cannot understand this, I came to realize that our academic subjects is only the possibility of existence which makes sense to physical senses. That's why we study physics, chemistry, biology, commerce. These are only subjects which make sense to physical senses. Therefore, our education system seems to be constrained to the limitations of the methodology of inquiry. Let me explain it. Because the methodology of inquiry is only physical or based on physical sciences or based on physical senses like ear, nose, tongue, mouth, touch. These are the physical means through which we establish the physical truth. But these cannot inform me who am I, because I realize more of me is non-physical. In the same vein, the UN is looking for solutions to global physical problems, and they are basing on scientific inquiry, trying to alleviate the physical problem. A point of wonder is, when we are looking at solving the global physical problems, are we solving the causality of these problems or the already caused problems? We need to make ourselves clear. When we are looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, are we solving the cause of the problem or the physically identified problems that we can reckon with? Therefore, for us to understand the problem of education, we are going to explore 3 research questions. 1. Is education only wonder for physical truth? What we call as education, is it only limited to what makes sense to physical senses? Number 2. Is the scientific inquiry and the physical truth, is this solving or alleviating the cause of the problem or the already caused physical problem? Okay? When we study based on the scientific inquiry, are we really solving the cause of the problem or the problems we have caused? Then number 3, if it is so what is the problem with the present education system? And what can we do to improve such? The only way to understand this, the problem with the now education system, we need to have a broader view of the nature of existence. I tried to explore and realized that the only evidence we have which can take us back to who we are or what is to establish the problem of education is to go back in the beginning. And as I explored far back, I realized that in the beginning of existence, God created the heaven, or that which is metaphysiological or spiritual or non-physical. And also he created the earth, or that which is physiological possibility of existence. It's quite interesting that this is the first verse of the Bible in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1. So the genesis of my existence is, in the beginning, God created the metaphysiological or the non-physical and the physical possibility of existence. Thus, when God created this, they were not distinct but were complementary. Therefore, we call this the Ubuntuality of existentialism. What does this mean? It means everything that exists is actually complementary, is actually interoperable because it is interrelated. This Isaac Newton, Einstein, and other major scientists have realized that yes, science has limitations beyond which it cannot explain the phenomena that come to us in life. But for us to understand the nature of existence, if God, now that God created the heaven and the earth, it means the physical intelligence of earth is different from the intelligence which is metaphysiological or spiritual. Therefore, it looks like the physical and non-physical seem to be 50-50. That is the picture we get here. But what we come to know is that the physiological truth, knowledge, the physical identity, the physical reality, and the physical education system is as different from the metaphysiological truth or knowledge and reality. Now that we realize that I realized that I have free will, I have choice, I can make choices, I can decide what I want. This is not scientific, is not physical. So I must study it from another dimension. Therefore, it is so stupid to use the physical senses to study my free will, my ability to make choices. Okay? Now, basing on the fundamental nature of existence, it means this is a duality of existentialism. Duality means two. Okay? Therefore, the duality of existentialism is the metaphysiological and the physiological possibility of existence, and that is the foundation of my existential identity. What does it mean? I, Martin, my identity, the same and you, we have a physical side and a metaphysiological side. Therefore, the scope of education, we should cover knowledge which is of physical reality and knowledge which is of the non-physical reality. But as you understand, our education system right now is only limited to that which makes sense to physical senses. Therefore, the physical senses, I cannot base on it to establish the metaphysiological truth. So what do? I tried to dig back. Now that God created the heaven and earth, where is the beginning of education? I inferred from what I found out in the hospitals. Whenever an individual person is born and begins to exist, he is born into an already existing nature of existence. We have looked at the nature of existence as a duality. What does it mean? Every person who is born is both physical and non-physical. Every tree, every bird, every snake, every creation is both physical and non-physical. Therefore, the nature of existence determines my identity and my scope of education. The nature of existence, it tells me, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. That is very fundamental. Never change it and say God created earth and heaven. No. It is the metaphysical that produces the physical. It is never the physical that produces the metaphysiological or the spiritual side. Okay? Therefore, all living soul, I want to educate you that whenever you hear of a living soul is not a spirit. A living soul means the metaphysiological or the spiritual side and the physical side have become one. Therefore, there is no living soul with one dimension or only physical or only spiritual. No. Every living soul has the duality of existentialism as one, which we call as the Ubuntuality. It comes from the word Ubuntu, togetherness, complementarity of existentialism. Okay? Therefore, each living soul has free will. It can either obey or disobey the order of existence based on the nature of existence. Let me say this. If the nature of existence says, if you drink petrol, you die, you must drink juice, and you say, no, me, I'll drink petrol, surely you will die, because that is the order of existence. The order of existence means everything that is follows a specific order the way should survive. I'll give an example. My order of existence, it refers to when I was born, I was supposed to walk. Imagine if I was born and I failed to walk. Would I have obeyed my order? No, I would have disobeyed it. Therefore, whenever you obey the order of existence. That is called good. Whenever you disobey, it is called evil. Okay? So every disobedience is evil. Now, the possibility of obeying or disobeying is based on the free will of every living soul. Let me put it further down. A tree can choose not to bear fruits. Yes, it has that choice. Therefore, either if we obey or disobey, there are consequences. Now, the beginning, by the time the primordial people started to invent writing, they had already started to wonder about the things around them, but there was no way they could write them. Let me put it this way. The innovation of writing, it came so much later when man had already wandered and was in quest for what is these things around me. Because there was no way to write, such knowledge before writing was preserved as enigmatic symbolisms. What do we mean by enigmatic symbolisms? Enigmatic comes from the word of something still perplexing, still confusing. It looks as if you understand it, but it has detailed meaning. And the initial documentation of the nature of existence was thus documented symbols like heaven, earth, the tree of life, good, evil, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that's how they kept their knowledge. It looked very archaic, but we must explore the primordial symbols to establish the problem of education. Later on, the symbolisms grew into what was considered as parables. Now, whenever you hear a parable, It has detailed meaning. Therefore, we must study these primordial symbolisms to appreciate the fundamental nature of existence and establish also how me and you should live. One of the symbolisms that is talked about is the tree of life. I agree with you, yes. All generations have tried to explore the tree of life. Other people even have put the tree in their necks as a cross. Other people, they worship a specific tree. Different cultures have used these trees to establish different religious belief systems. But I want you now to appreciate the ancient primordial meaning of the tree of life, which was forgotten. The tree of life is only descriptive and illustrative of the existential identity of living souls. Hey, let me put it clear. The tree of life is simply explaining that every living soul, whether man, a fauna, flora, the birds in the air, those underwater, has 4 dimensions. Now, let us appreciate this. In the beginning, we talked about the duality where every species is both metaphysiological or spiritual and also also physical. So when the metaphysiological and the physical come together, it forms the living soul. Now, the symbol of the tree of life tells us that we are not only 2 dimensions, but we are 4 dimensions. What does that mean? It means that we have ability to create, or the roots. We have the ability to process our desired physiological outcome, or the fruits. Therefore, basing on the fruits, we can also establish the metaphysiological outcome or the worth of whatever we have caused. I'll give you an example. A case in point. We have the ability, based on the roots, to wage wars. Basing on the stem, to make sure we put in place whatever is necessary, this war to take place. Basing on the fruit of the tree, the war actually takes place, like the war we have in Russia and Ukraine. But when we talk of the metaphysiological outcome, that's where we measure or we do judgment of the worth of what we have done. What does it mean? Whatever we do, sometimes you hear people saying, I wish I knew, I would have done things differently. I wish I was told. What does it mean? It only means that this person is unconsciously evaluating the worth of his or her prior decisions and choices. Therefore, I want you to establish that another fundamental symbol of a tree, now that it has 4 dimensions, it also means whatsoever has a beginning as well has an end. There is no tree which is eternal. So whatsoever is 4-dimensional, whatever living soul is 4-dimensional, also is limited to time and space continuum. I need you now to understand this. That the ability to cause the roots and the ability to process the stems and the ability to make metaphysiological judgments, these are metaphysiological or spiritual. What am I saying? Of the 4 components of the tree, the roots, the processes, and the metaphysical outcome, these are spiritual or metaphysiological. Some scholars call it psychological. These three components, they are spiritual, yet the physical component we see is only the fruit. I'll give you an application of this. The global challenges that we are focused on solving, it is only the fruit, but it has prior roots and stem. Okay? Therefore, what the primordial people were calling as the Trinity of spirituality was never the religious belief of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. No. Neither the belief of Jesus, Joseph, and Mary. These are coined later on, but the ancient primordial consideration of the Trinity of spirituality was the three dimensions of every living soul. Therefore, the methodology of inquiry, or the means to know the truth for the roots, for the stem, for the fruit, and the worth of the fruit is not the same, but is complementary. Let me explain this. The senses to create is different from the senses to process, and is different from the physical senses or scientific inquiry to see what we have caused or the fruit of the tree, and is different from the senses for doing judgment of the worth of whatever we have caused. In my local country, Uganda, I am a Muganda. We have a word called Katonda, meaning God. But let me let you to appreciate that Katonda is not God. Katonda is the means, is the ability to create. But God is the foundation of the entire tree. Let me repeat it. The word Katonda, or creation, is the ability to bring something new. Therefore, Katonda is not God, because God is the foundation into which the tree is grounded. What does this mean? There is a reality even below the roots, and we shall study that later. Therefore, from this, let's look at another tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What does this tree symbolize? It symbolizes all existential system components of the tree is functional, and actually all is one. Or we call this the Ubuntuality of existentialism. What am I talking about? The roots, the stem, the fruit, and the judgment of the fruit, all is one. What does this mean? It means when you look at the physical problems, it is related to something which caused them, and is related to something there which processed them to manifest as problems. Therefore, when we are talking about physical problems, we must look at the source of the physical problems. If the source is not corrected, the physical problem will actually exacerbate. Okay? Therefore, every component of this tree, the four components, has free will choicism. Let me say this. You choose what you want to create. You choose what you process. And that's what comes up. Whatever comes up, you can refuse it or accept it. Okay? Therefore, if you are looking at this, we are now looking at a bigger picture of who I am and understanding the problem of education. We have alluded that our education is only based on the fruit of the tree, which is the physical outcome. Why? That is the possibility of existence, which is sensible to scientific inquiry or the physical senses. Okay? Therefore, every part of the tree has respective truth, is a respective identity, knowledge, reality, intelligence. Artificial intelligence is only intelligence of the physical outcome, but it is not the intelligence of causality. The academic subjects, physics, chemistry, biology, the natural sciences, are only physics of things which make sense to physical senses, but never the trinity of spirituality. Okay? Therefore, truth is respective based on different methodology of inquiry. Truth is never only scientific based on scientific methodology of inquiry. No, it is different. Now, looking at this nature of existence, let's pause a bit. Remember, we are trying to establish the problem with education. The now education is only limited to physical outcome, which we can see by physical senses. But whichever physical outcome, we have caused it. There is no physical outcome which is by coincidence. Therefore, that gives us the existential system model based on the tree of life. What is the existential system model? It means that now that my identity or who I am is based on, first, as a duality, the physical and non-physical coming together. Secondly, the spiritual has been broken down into three components. The blue components, we create, we cause things, we process them, and we also can make metaphysiological outcomes. We can make judgment. But the physical outcome is only one component out of the four. What does this mean? This implies that the metaphysiological side of my identity is 3 times bigger than the physical truth. Let me repeat this. Now that our education systems is based on physical truth, based on scientific inquiry, our spiritual side is based on 3 dimensions. It means each dimension is a different methodology of inquiry, or the means to know the truth of each dimension is respective, is not uniform. Therefore, whatsoever is caused is processed into a physical outcome, and every physical outcome undergoes measurement or judgment. Let me also put this at this moment. Our academic subjects are only limited to existential physical outcome. We need to come up with academic systems of how to create, how to process, and how to make existential judgments. Therefore, the nature of existence is all is one. It means the metaphysiological is the trinity of spirituality combines with the physical to act as one system, not as separate systems. Okay? Every fruit of the tree has prior roots and stem. Remember, we are studying primordial symbolisms to establish where are we and what is the problem of education. Every fruit of the tree or every physical possibility of existence has prior causality based on roots and process based on the stem. Therefore, every fruit is indicative of its roots and the stem. This is where I ask a problem. If you have an orange tree and the orange seems to be having some form of disease, what do you spray and what do you care about most? Is it the finished fruit or the roots, the stem, and the ground where the tree is founded? Okay? Therefore, we are now opening our eyes to establish that there is life beyond what is physical. What is physical is not limited to psychology. Psychology is a very minute component. Psychology is man's way to understand humanity. Let me put it this: that which is spiritual is our human dimension. That which is physical is man's dimension. I can therefore say with authority that there is no way that you can use scientific inquiry to study human anatomy. Let me repeat it. There is no way you can use physical senses to study human anatomy. And why am I saying so? Because physical senses can only study that which is physical. Therefore, sciences are only studying man's or anatomy of respective living souls. They are studying the physical dimension. But I'm telling you now, we must study the human anatomy or the metaphysiological anatomy of respective living souls. And that metaphysiological anatomy of living souls is what I am laboring to explain based on the symbolism of the tree of life. Are we together? Okay. Therefore, basing on this nature of existence as a tree, okay, it is impossible for the fruit of the tree to solve and alleviate the problems of the root, of the stem, even the fruit itself, and cannot even establish the worth of fruit of tree. Let me explain it, and I need you to follow me clearly. When you have an orange tree, when the orange is diseased and you want to solve a problem, the orange cannot solve the problem at the root, cannot solve the problem at the stem, and cannot even solve its problem, because the existence of the orange or the fruit is only based on the roots and the stem. This orange cannot even make a judgment. Therefore, let me make a fundamental statement. The empirical knowledge is based on physical outcomes or the fruit of the tree. Why is it called empirical knowledge? Because it is the knowledge that is sensible to physical senses. Now that empirical knowledge is knowledge based on the fruit of the tree, empirical knowledge cannot solve causality problems. It cannot even understand the problems of the stem. It cannot even make judgment. Its role is to realize that yes, this is the outcome. I'll give you this statement down in red. The global physical problems, which are also based on the fruit of the tree, individual persons, academic institutions, research organizations, think tanks, and even the UN, they are so focused to alleviate these problems. But all are blindly unaware that the problems they are solving, it is their own continuous, unconscious, existential causation and processing as per the free will. Let me explain it. The problems that individual persons, academic institutions, research organizations, the think tanks, and even the UN, whatever they are busy trying to solve, they don't know that they are the same people who are creating more problems, because their free will is more of evil or disobedience. Whenever you disobey the order of existence, you cause more problems. Therefore, the global physical challenges, it is outcomes of evil choices at the root and the stem. Are we together? Therefore, now that we've looked at this, let's make sense of what we've looked at. We discuss our findings. The fundamental nature of existence. Because we are born when existence is already in place, it is the environment we are born into that determines who we are. Therefore, my identity, my scope of education is based on the nature of existence. Let me explain it this way. We have looked at the nature of existence using two symbols. One, as a duality based on heaven and earth. Two, as a quadinity, quad means four, a quadinity of existentialism, where we have seen that our identity is likened to a tree with four parts, three of which are metaphysiological and one is physiological. Therefore, my identity is 3 dimensions, metaphysiological, and 1 dimension, physical. Therefore, the existential scope of education, I must know the 3 dimensions which are metaphysiological, thus which is called as the Trinity of spirituality, and also the physiological side. Okay? Now, education begins with wonder and quest for knowing. How do I know this? Every child who is born tries to adjust into the environment is born, assisted by the mother. Starts to pick sounds, to pick different signals, so as to know what is this I have been introduced to. Therefore, wonder is fundamental if we need to go forward. Okay? Therefore, for us to solve our problems, these individual problems, the academic institution, research organization, the think tanks, and the UN, they are not solving the cause of the problem. They are not even solving how the problems are processed. They are only solving the caused problem. Okay? What they are solving, they are busy solving the fruit of the tree. But they are busy creating more problems. I'll tell you as we study further that the essence of your existence is not monetary. No. Money is not the essence of your existence. Therefore, no matter how much money you can acquire, you will never be fully contented, because that is not the goal of your existence. The goal of your existence is that whatever you create and process, you come up with physical outcomes which are worthwhile, which are good. Okay? Therefore, all these components of the tree, the root, the stem, the fruit, and the metaphysiological outcome, they are functional. And that is the foundation of the African philosophy called Ubuntu. I know the Western philosophy is based on individualism. They feel they are great, they feel they are important, which is okay to feel that way. But the Africans' philosophy of Ubuntu, it tells us that all of us, we are interconnected and we are interdependent. Therefore, we are interoperable. Interoperable, that means our survival depends on each other. and not only each other as individuals, but each other as all living souls. Let me repeat it. Our existence depends on us caring for the different individuals, the fauna, the flora, the birds in the air, the things or species which are in water. We must look at all these in totality. All are important. Let me make this statement. Actually, the least important living creation is man. Why do I say so? Because without other species, without other living souls, also man dies. But without man, other living soul survives. This I know is cracking your mind, but let me put it this simply. Look at a bicycle. What is the most important part of a bicycle? Is it the tires? Is it the brakes? Is it the handles? Think through it and see. But that which we call as other species, they are the basis why we exist. We better look at them with a good eye, with good decisions, with good motives, so that we also care about them. The concept of Ubuntu is actually explaining the tree of life. The tree of life is not a cross that you can put in your neck, no. It is a symbolic illustration of who you are and the scope of education. Therefore, every fruit has previous roots and stem. What does this imply? It means if you want to solve the fruit, go to the roots and the stem and establish those education system. Okay? And whatever is created as a fruit must be judged whether it is worthwhile or not. Every tree in its creation does judgment. So you as an individual, you also informally do judgment and you wonder, I wish I knew. I tried to make this simple. The senses that help us to create are 5. The senses that help us to see what we have created, the fruit, are also 5. We have studied the academic subjects of the physical reality. Therefore, we are able to see the physical problem. But we have not yet studied the academic subjects of causality, based on feelings, emotions, imaginations, thought, and intuition. This is an illustration based on the duality of existentialism. Okay? Now, let me blow it out. We look at this based on the coordinate. Hey, looking at this, the permutations that happens at the root are different from the permutations that happen at the stem and those which happened at the fruit, even when we are looking at the worth of the fruit. Let me say this. Every physical outcome has different roots and different stem. These permutations, we can start, I know it is big, but we can dig this deeper and we will study this as we continue. In my local language in Luganda, here in Uganda, the right word that was used by the ancient people was Tomala Gayoya Yoya. Let me repeat it. Tomala Gayoya Yoya. What does it mean? It means do not simply engage into free will desire. Even having free will, don't just simply engage in free will, whatever you want. No, because whatever you create, so shall you experience. Therefore, whatever you engage into as per your free will, make sure you measure the worth of what you are engaging into. Therefore, continuing with the discussion of findings, free will desire, either good or evil, at the root influences the fruit of the tree. Let me add this. The ancient Egyptian education system was called the Kemetic. Kemet means black. Kemetic education system. The Kemetic education system was based on two sides, the metaphysiological side and the physiological side. In the metaphysiological side, they had already realized that your free will, either good or evil, influence the physical outcome. And it is basing on this that the Greeks had established what we call as the laws of math, M-A-A-T, the laws of math. Some scholars call it the laws of confession. Such laws were based on intent. For example, the laws based on math, one of the law was, I will not kill. But in the Decalogue or the Ten Commandments, the same law is, do not kill. Now, do not kill is intended on what you have done. You may not have killed, but you had intent to. But the laws of math were based on the roots. Don't even intend to kill, later on kill. So even the intent, if the intent is right, the fruit will be right. Okay? Therefore, this Kemetic education system, they knew that every fruit or every physiological possibility of existence, it has prior roots and stem. Okay? They knew this. So what I'm bringing to you is not new. I pick it from my ancestors that studied these things. Therefore, the metaphysiological or the spiritual side, based on the root and the stem, causes the fruit. Thus, the fruit is not self-existent. There is no physical possibility of existence that is self-existent, but it has prior roots and stem. We have even looked at the archaeological remains to explain the nature of existence, but it is not sufficient. There is no archaeological remains that can explain the beginning of existence, because every archaeological remains is physical, therefore is only a fruit. What led to the fruit cannot be established basing on archaeological remains. The existential scope of education, therefore, is for all living souls to know thyself based on the nature of existence. We have alluded that the nature of existence is both a duality and a coordinate. But with further studies, I'll demonstrate that the nature of your existence is even beyond a coordinate of existentialism. My brother, my sister, if you may take it that way, you are not only a physical possibility, you are a spirit, you are significantly a spiritual entity. Therefore, the physical things you do have a source. Okay? Therefore, the problems of existence is based on tree of life as per the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What am I saying here? The problem of existence is not only the physical problem. There is causality problems. There is process problems. That's why we have the global physiological problems. There are also metaphysiological outcomes problems. Therefore, whenever we are talking about existential problems, we are talking about problems based on the 4 dimensions of the tree. We cannot come up with physical solutions to solve existential problems because physical solutions are only based on the fruit. We cannot base on that to solve problems on other parts of the tree. Therefore, the global physical problems that we are all caught up in a rat race trying to solve is not the fundamental problem. Actually, the fundamental problem precedes the global physical problem. And what is the problem? The fundamental problem is that the free will choice at the root and the stem is increasingly evil. Let me repeat it in a better way. The roots is increasingly rotten. The stem is increasingly rotten. What did you expect of the physical outcome? We cannot solve global physical problems when the root and the stem are based on evil choices. Even the Greek philosophers that we so praise in philosophy and we think they are the fathers of X, Y, and Z, whatever you can call, they claim to be the fathers. But by the time the Greeks existed, people had lived on the continent of Africa for more than a million of years. Let me repeat it. The Greek philosophers that we so highly regard existed when the education system based on the tree was already in place. Okay? Actually, the Kemetic education system was dismantled and abandoned and abolished by the Greek philosophers. The metaphysiological education, the Greek philosophers, when they came to study, they considered it as the Kemetic mystery education. If you explore internet and you come across the Kemetic mystery education, actually it was not a mystery to previous civilizations, no. It was only a mystery to the Greeks who wanted to conquer Egypt. It is noted that none of the Greek philosophers completed the Kemetic education system. Let me repeat this. None of the Greek philosophers completed the Kemetic education system because the education system was based on 40 years of education. I'll give you a clue, something which is not part of this presentation. Basing on the education system, it was the reason that the population remained below 1.5 billion globally. Let me do this. Because the education system was 40 years, people were starting to produce at late 30s, 40s, and 50s. So you could hardly produce 2 or 3 children. And the people knew the child will survive. So they were producing few. Now that the Kemetic mystery education or the Kemetic metaphysiological education was disbanded, until today, our education system was at ease and continues to be affected by the decision of the Greeks. That's why I say, begin again to explore the symbolisms of the tree of life. Okay? Let me make this clear. I know we are trying to reduce the global population. Since 1844 up to 2024, it is exactly 180 years. We have dumped 6.5 billion population to make a total of 8 billion. There is no biological, chemical, physical methodology, despite wars, despite anything you can talk about, that will ever solve the depopulation problem, but the roots of the tree. Let me put it simply. There is no physical solution that will ever solve the depopulation problem, but it is a metaphysiological solution based on the roots. Whenever people know that their life is under danger, the population actually will exponentially increase. Continuing with the application of the findings, it is very painful, but I need you to know it, that the living soul, which is looking for solution to alleviate the physical problem, is unconscious that it is the same who's creating and processing more problem that is focused to solve. Let me repeat it. The living soul, man, who is looking for solutions to physical problem, is unaware that is the same who is continuously creating more problems because of evil free will choicism at the root and the stem. Number 2, the education system, curriculum, syllabus, and academic subjects is now limited to only physical truth and empirical knowledge. Why is it so? Because the only considered formal methodology of inquiry, or the means to establish the truth, is only limited to physical senses. Let me make it clear. Because the methodology, the means to establish the truth is physical, we can only know physical truth. Therefore, the now considered scope of education is only of fruit of the tree. Altogether. Number 3, do not blame the global physical problems. This is only the fruit of the tree. Never blame the fruits of the tree. But more problems is undergoing causation and processing. Why? All components of the tree is functional. There is nothing which is independent. All are interoperable. The more we have evil at the roots and the stem, so shall be the fruits of the tree. Number 4, the physiological morphological structure, especially of man. Please, I don't want you to get lost. Physiological morphological structures, meaning the shape, the body, the body, especially of man, the shape is not significantly changing. But I need you to know the trinity of spirituality or humanity is increasingly, continuously growing in malevolence or malevolence. Malevolence means is increasingly evil. What man considers, what people consider as normal, is increasingly abnormal. Okay? Due to evil at the roots, what we call as the normal is abnormal. Looking at the application of this study, I want you to know Stetson, in his publication 2014, he was laboring to explain, is humanity a failed experiment? Stetson could not explain the trinity of spirituality or humanity because humanity is based on the trinity of spirituality. I now confidently tell you that humanity is not a failed experiment. Humanity is, you cannot judge whether humanity is a failed experiment basing on scientific inquiry. Therefore, humanity does not know who he is. People are making choices unconsciously of the outcome. Okay? Therefore, you cannot wake up and improve humanity. Let me emphasize this in capital letters. You cannot wake up and improve humanity or the trinity of spirituality. No. There are not even trans and post-humanism tendencies. No. That is a physical approach to spirituality. But when we come into spirituality or the trinity of spirituality, you cannot improve transport. Sorry, you cannot improve post and pre-humanism. Why am I saying this? Can you improve oxygen? However much you purify it, it is oxygen. That's what it is. Can you improve the clouds? That's what it is. Therefore, our free will must be learned because all these three dimensions is based on free will. Number two, I also noted technology cannot advance humanity. Let me repeat it. Technology can never advance the metaphysiological identity of a living soul. It can only improve the well-being of the physical side, which is just a container of humanity. But humanity is the foundation of respective intelligence, which establish the technologies. Let me say this. Artificial intelligence is not the only intelligence, but it is only intelligence based on the physical outcomes. There are other forms of intelligence we shall look at gradually. Every physical possibility has prior metaphysiological source. Okay? Every physical possibility of existence has a spiritual background. So you need to grow the education system from only looking at man's anatomy or the skeletons of living souls, and look at the spiritual anatomy of all living souls. And we shall study this. It is therefore illogical to use the physical senses in wonder and quest for metaphysiological or the spiritual possibility of existence. Let me put it this way. It is illogical to use physical senses based on the fruit to establish the metaphysiological truth. But the reverse is true. Therefore, never establish physical solutions to alleviate metaphysiological, spiritual problems and existential problems. Let me put it right. Never establish physical solution for spiritual and existential problems. Therefore, the physiological experiences, the houses, the vehicles, the roads, the infrastructure we talk about, it is good to have, but it is only the outcome of our causing. Therefore, it is important that we must understand the respective forms of inquiry of how do we create and how do we process. I'll give you my general conclusion. The tree of life we have been talking about is only symbolic of the nature of existence, which is the basis of who am I, or my existential identity, and what must I know, or my existential scope of education. Number 2, education is the wonder and the quest for knowing who I am based on the tree, not only based on the fruit of the tree. We must grow beyond physical empirical knowledge. Number 3, the scientific inquiry and physical truth is only awareness of the fruit of the tree, or the physical possibility that which is already caused. But logically, a fruit cannot solve neither self nor own cause. So we need to know that to grow beyond scientific and physical truth. Therefore, the problem with the now education system, the curriculum, the syllabus, is this. This education system is only limited to the fruit of the tree. So we are only studying that which we are causing unconsciously. Therefore, now that the tree is functional, more physical problem is also undergoing causation and processing, because the root is functional, the stem is functional. It is thus imperative to establish that it is impossible for the physical truth and empirical knowledge to alleviate existential problems and even the global physical problems. Let me repeat this. It is impossible for the knowledge of the physical truth to solve even the global physical problems and existential problem until when we choose yes to have such a problem solved. I'll give you an example to emphasize this. We have HIV now in every country. Can you openly tell me that there is no cure for HIV? The question is, yes, we see the problem is HIV. Do we actually want to solve HIV, or we have commercialized it to give us a source of income and employment? Therefore, don't base on physical truth to solve problems. The solution to every problem is actually metaphysiological. I can now ably make this statement to you. Therefore, thus, no matter the physical truth, there is no physical truth that can overcome sin. Let me put it this way. There is no physical truth or knowledge or religious belief that can overcome the evil free will at the roots and the stem. The disobedience of order of existence is at the root and the stem. So you cannot bring a fruit-based solution to the diseases at the root. To overcome sin, we must study the impact of free will based on the nature of nature. Therefore, I will give my specific conclusions. Based on the specific conclusions, I now ably can tell you the problem of education which we must solve is that our education is only limited to the possibility of existence that is verifiable and justifiable by physical senses or scientific inquiry based on ears, nose, tongue, mouth, and skin. So when we talk about our education, we are only limited to a quarter of the tree of life, the fruit of the tree. I now ask you, we must grow our education beyond the fruit of the tree and explore the trinity of spirituality. Actually, the next frontier of education is to explore the trinity of spirituality. We must grow and restore the existential knowledge based on the tree of life, which was reduced, degraded to only physical knowledge. The climate, I know we talk about climate change. We only are talking about the physical climate, but the spiritual or metaphysiological climate is 3 times bigger than the physical climate. Therefore, the climate, which is metaphysiological and physiological, continues to change and is changing never by coincidence, but as per the free will choices of all living souls. I have told you, all components of the tree are one. All living souls are one. The climate which is changing is not only the climate of man, but even the climate of other living souls. We need to study the free will, the impact of free will on physical reality. Therefore, we must continue in wonder and quest to know thyself. What Plato considered as know thyself is a statement that was learned from the Kemetic education system, because the know thyself was also the foundation of the laws of math or the laws of confession used during the ancient Egyptian civilization. We must know who we are. Okay? The free will that we have is not just free, it is the means by which we create and process whatsoever we want, and therefore, thus is the experience that we are going through. The global challenges, we have caused it, so you cannot delete it. The only way to solve global physical challenges is to create fruits which are not diseased, fruits which have no challenges, fruits which are complementary in nature. Here's my recommendation, and we close. All components of the tree is functional. What am I saying? The African philosophy of Ubuntu, without it, it is evil choices. We cannot continue in individualism. That is the foundation of global challenges. We cannot continue in illegal mining of minerals without consequences. It will come back to us. We must know thyself based on the nature of existence. We need to redo our education system beyond physical truth. Number 2, our existential scope of education actually is to know who we are based on the tree of life. Therefore, for us to alleviate the physical problems, we must be learn to solve them at source. Let me repeat this. This world where we see the trees, we are not so many, we are not so populated, we are not so poor, but the free will of the few has caused this. And the greatest problem is that they may be doing this unconsciously. We must grow and understand every free will decision has consequences. Number 3, we must grow the scope of education from only wonder and quest for the fruit of the tree into the existential truth. We need to grow beyond the physical truth into existential truth. This must be founded on the nature of existence. Sadly, the Greeks abolished and banished the Kemetic education system. What I am presenting here, I am actually re-establishing the once abolished and banished education system. We must go back and re-examine, come up with ways to solve problems before they are created. We need to know that the methodological forms of inquiry, the means to know the truth of the roots, the stem, the fruit, and the measurement of the worth of the fruit is not the same, but is complementary. Finally, I need you to shift from physical warfare. Wars have been fought, but has peace been established? The physical wars cannot establish peace. We must shift into metaphysiological warfare. In the metaphysiological warfare, we shall even be able to understand why evil prevails. We shall be able to understand why evil looks sweeter. And we must be able to understand that we are responsible for the physical global challenges. When we continue in the physical warfare, that is on the surface. But in the metaphysiological warfare, we will grow into our metaphysiological identity. We will be able to establish spiritual academic subjects. We will be able to establish that which makes us do what we do. You cannot study behavioral sciences basing on sciences. The best way to study behavioral sciences must be metaphysiological. Finally, I need all of us to agree. Now that we are all living souls, a living soul, I said, it is a combination of the metaphysiological heaven and the physiological earth. So when the metaphysiological and the physical come together, we form a living soul. Therefore, we must shift from merely survival of the fittest. This is based on individualism, survival of the fittest. We must grow into quest for living. Since we are living soul, we must learn how to live. All species are living. It is quite challenging that man is the species, is the living soul, which is significantly believing in survival of the fittest. We need to change, and that is the recommendation. The fundamental problem I have alluded here, the problem of education, is our education must grow from only the fruit of the tree into the tree of life. We must shift from physical truth into existential truth. We are busy solving physical global challenges, but we are the one creating them. We cannot keep in the cycle of solving problems that we are continuously creating. Therefore, I have been laboring only to tell you that this is the existential problem of education. I am very sure that now you agree with me that our education is missing. Something was stolen, something was removed, but we must bring it back. We cannot solve the physical problem until we learn not to create them any longer. We must learn that our free will is not just free, but it is our ability to create whatever we want. Therefore, the existential problem of education is that we must know ourselves based on the tree of life. Next to this, I'll grow you so that you appreciate the problem of education beyond the tree of life into 7 dimensions. But for now, I thank you for joining me. I thank you for listening in. I ask, please share this video. Let others learn. The future of education will start again from Africa. The next civilization again will begin from Africa. And I will explain to you that as we continue to move on. I thank you for working with me to bring up the existential problem of education. Thank you, and thank you so much.